Down to 4 in the NCAA volleyball tourney, and 2 of them are from the Big Ten. Conference co-champs meet tonight in Louisville for a spot in the national championship. Penn State and Nebraska. It's the second of the 2 semis. Louisville and Pitt will precede it. All 4 of the schools that advanced to this point were number 1 seeds in their regionals. Our Gatorade game leaders breaking down this matchup. It's the 4th time these 2 have met in the national semis. Penn State has won 2 of the prior 3, but Nebraska won the last one in 2017, also the last time they won the national championship. Huskers have been here a lot, 7 times in the last 10 years, while Penn State hasn't been since that loss in the semifinals to the Huskers 7 years ago. Cameron Irwin is covering this for us in Louisville, and she joins me now to preview it. Cameron, let's start big picture. This is the first time since 2008 that all 4 of the number 1 seeds have advanced to the national semifinals. Is there a favorite in your mind in this tournament?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, you have to pay attention to obviously the Big Ten teams and what they've been able to do. Nebraska going back to back in terms of that trip to the national championship. That's what they are going to be eyeing, having taken a loss to Texas last year. So it's hard to go past them in terms of just experience at that championship level. And especially John Cook, currently the only coach of the remaining 4 that does have a national title to his name. So I'm definitely going to be looking to Nebraska. But then again, on the other side, Penn State is very dangerous. I like what I've seen from them, especially from their freshman setter, Izzy Stark. She has been so fun to watch. Recently just became the National Freshman of the Year. Her offense is high-flying, and one thing to watch out for with her blocking is superb, which is remarkable to see coming from a setter.
So Louisville gets to play this at home, and this is not unprecedented, as we know. Omaha has been a host site. Obviously, Nebraska isn't in Omaha, but it's certainly quite proximate. Pittsburgh has hosted this Final Four in the past, so we've had it close to really good programs. But how is this being viewed, kind of the notion that you have a de facto home game for one team here in the Final Four?
Yeah, I think it's a huge advantage, obviously, for Louisville, and especially considering that they've lost to Pitt the last 2 times this season. So it makes you kind of wonder, is that going to be the difference maker? How much of an impact will that have, especially against Pitt, who has been sitting at the number 1 spot for the majority of this season? This is a team that is so scary to face. They are great on both sides of the ball, offensively, defensively. They're at the top of the charts, number 1 in the country in opponent hitting efficiency, and on the opposite side, their own efficiency. So this is going to be a huge task for Louisville, especially considering they've lost to them twice this year. But also important to note, they did take a couple sets off of Pitt. First competition was a 3-2 win to Pitt, but then the second time it was a 3-1 win. So there is definitely a little bit of emphasis heading into this matchup, especially considering that it's an ACC matchup, they're rivals, and then you got the home crowd for Louisville on their side. That might be just the extra push that Louisville needs to pick up the win over Pitt.
All right, let's get to the semifinal that I know Big Ten fans are most excited about, Penn State and Nebraska. And Penn State just beat the Huskers a few weeks ago. Obviously, it was in State College. This will be at a neutral site, but that was to clinch a share of the Big Ten title for the Nittany Lions. They held Nebraska to a season low in terms of hitting percentage. Let's focus on Penn State's side of this matchup first. What's the formula for them to make it a second straight win over Nebraska?
I love it. Well, a couple of things that stood out to me just based off of press conferences just yesterday is Penn State has talked about just how grueling Big Ten play has been and how it's prepared them for moments like this. And you can see just the amount of emphasis that they put on their offensive scheme. I also love Cameron Hanna and what she's been able to do for this roster. You look at the outside too, Jess Mierzik is phenomenal in terms of her efficiency and how she's been able to really ball control for this team. So again, Penn State is going to come into this. They need to have confidence. They just took down Nebraska. They have a share of the Big Ten title for the first time since 2017. And you think back to 2017, well, they faced Nebraska yet again at this exact same juncture. They're looking to change the tide here and get back to the top of the order.
I think one thing that's interesting from Penn State's point of view, different from Nebraska, is, as you mentioned, I mean, they haven't been to the Final Four since 2017. So by definition here, even in this crazy age of college athletics, no one on Penn State's team has played in the Final Four. You have Katie Schumacher-Cawley coaching in it for the first time, trying to become the first female coach ever to win a national championship. How big a factor do you think that is, the lack of experience on Penn State's side?
Well, you consider that there might be some inexperience in some regards, but they also were able to pull over 2 transfers from Nebraska who were in this position, whether they were on the floor or not last year. They do have experience playing in some big time moments. And I think they have nothing to lose just in terms of what they've been able to put on paper, the record, and picking up the win already. So there is plenty of whether you want to call it emphasis, inspiration, and just confidence heading into this matchup for Penn State. I'm excited to see this team because I think they're going to be able to push Nebraska at least to the clip in terms of trying to pick up a set or 2 here.
A program that has won 7 titles all time in Penn State. Let's change our focus here to Nebraska. And you mentioned it, they're a year removed from playing for a national championship. They're a team known for their defensive prowess. What's the game plan here against Penn State?
Oh, man, you mentioned it. Defense, defense, defense. And I think when you pay attention to something like opponent hitting efficiency, that actually takes and encompasses not just your front court defense, but also your back court defense. And one of the bright stars for Nebraska is going to be Lexi Rodriguez in the backcourt. She's a 4-time All-American, and she's currently a finalist for National Player of the Year, which is remarkable to see coming from a libero. I mean, if you were able to take your eye off the ball, just tune into this matchup and watch her throughout the entirety of a rally, just to see her court mobility and her communication with her team. And then, of course, her wild, outlandish digs that she's able to pick up time and time again. But she's a true leader for this team and really pushes Nebraska defensively, giving them so many opportunities to score in transition. So that's going to be critical for them, again, in this matchup.
Mention how close Nebraska was a year ago. What have they said about that experience and how it might carry over into this year?
Yeah, it's definitely propelling them. I think one of the things that has been mimicked time and time again in the last 24 hours by the Cornhuskers is just to keep things simple. They do have confidence going in, and there is a lot of conversation even around mentality. How can we breathe through these moments and almost just lean into what we did last year? It's definitely taken some of that pressure off because they've been through the media day in and day out. They've been in the big time moments, and it's a familiar opponent, which helps in terms of scouting as well. They only had a chance to see Penn State once this year, so you can guarantee that film, that loss. Well, there's going to be a little bit of what we'll call revenge for Nebraska is what they're going to be looking for in this matchup.
Cameron Irwin, have fun tonight. This should be an amazing group of semifinals. We look forward to seeing your coverage and appreciate your time here, giving us a little insight.
Awesome. We can't wait to see it. It's going to be some fantastic volleyball right here in Louisville.